Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propaganda Fields with me, as Peel Dane. I'll be keeping the taskbar this time around since some people requested it, so apparently I can keep track of things on the minimap. But, I won't be having things going on because, well, it might partly be, I want to use the replay later on and, don't want to spoil anything. But overall, I just find it might be a bit distracting. But overall, we're moving on here to the next map, Gleize. Breakout, Gleize, one of the newer Western Front Army maps available here. 1 versus 1 map, more or less. Bases in north, bases in south. Few points here, and 7 the victory points will spread out a nice line there with the munitions also in the center. Overall, it's a reasonably urban map with a lot of buildings sort of covering up the center. In particular, this spot is very much a hot spot right here. It all has a lot of sort of spots for sneaking in. For example, there's a road here, and there's a bit of here as well. Northwise, we have a bit here around as well. This building, for example, is very much a sort of a good point for actually sort of holding things here. You can sort of cover here, you can cover here, you can cover here. It's a bit tricky to sort of sneak up unless you're sort of coming in from the north here, and even then, a bit of barbed wire or mine here or similar here could certainly do a trick as well. Though, you can in theory also use this building sort of actually sneak around. This has no defensive value, it's only 2 windows, but basically what it does perf is actually have a method sort of quickly moving from here to here without having to run around here. So for example, if you're, say, coming from the north, there's some bastards waiting around here, but you want to sort of get through here, you go up here, get into the door, get through the other, and then you sneak up through here, for example. That's an option to sort of consider. This building's sort of reasonably effective in holding up things here, though not quite as much. But still, overall, it's a good infantry building as well. Got plenty of windows. This one as well. To a lesser extent, less so here. Lesser as well. It's more for sort of allowing the southern player to sort of hold up through the village. It's less effective for the player from the north to sort of hold from a southern player due to the way. You can easily creep up and pop some grenades, for example. So not quite as effective. This is also, by the way, a good spot for mining. Around here is a good spot for mining generally. If you're using this building, be watchful around here. A mine or some barbed wire might help you a bit, though. This building is a bit interesting. It's a bit odd currently in that, well, you can only really enter from the back, but you apparently can exit from here as well. So it's a bit weird. It's sort of more advantageous to the northern player for interesting reasons, but overall, even if you have here, you're sort of took it from it. It's not really much you can do with it since there's a fence in the way. So you have to clear out the fence here to sort of get any sort of further usage out of this sort of cluster of buildings. So a little note already there, and again, you sort of vital center point mines here and there can also do quite well. This building is also quite neat if you sort of want to cover around the area here. It's got a ton of windows, which all makes it good for covering here. In fact, for most infantry, the same with this building if you want to cover here. Less so around here, though an empty might do reasonably well also here. So, this is clearly also building that sort of favours the northern player. The church here is, well, less effective. It's not really got a lot of windows. It's more for just sort of moving through quickly or maybe sort of holding up things here. But overall, it doesn't really do much. This, by the way, is also a good spot for a mine or a demo charge. Same here and here. The fuel point here is sort of, well, it's a bit tricky to harass. A player who doesn't pay attention will sort of take the longer route, so you can in some regards capture in there. Though the clever player will basically vault over here and harass through there. Though, of course, they'll have to sort of keep in mind to vault back over there, for example. Buildings here don't really do much, though they can be used to sort of quickly infiltrate some troops if that's what you want. Same with this one and this one. They don't really add much. They're just there as opposed to weapons for infiltrators. Overall, this also sees some action, but generally it doesn't tend to be sort of where most of the fighting sort of mostly ends up. It does have a slight tendency of sort of more here. Well, while it is certainly also a lot more road, it's also a bit more open in some ways. There's a lot more you can sort of easily break and maneuver through. There's also a lot of smaller sheds here. There's a building here which doesn't do much. This one, for example, also quite good for sort of holding the surrounding area with a heavy machine gun. For example, some infantry can actually cause a bit of problem. There's also a shed here though that doesn't do much, though it is good for infiltrators as well. This fuel point, though, if you compare the two fuel points, this one tends to see more harassment than this one, but that's not to say it's completely, out of the picture either. But generally, you sort of still want to sort of keep something guarding over there. It's also a bit easy to sort of run around to. It's less, wired off, for example. This point generally tends to be a little less action, and same, well, this one sees reasonable amounts of it. I mean, this just sort of give you an idea where sort of most of the action can happen, where you can sort of maybe try to sort of sneak something in. I mean, a lot of pressure can happen there. This is also a bit of a blind spot, so for example, that's actually a good pressure spot, sort of harassing your opponent if you're sort of from the north as well. This building, I mean, you know, it can benefit both sides overall, though it tends to benefit the southern player a bit more. But again, most of the fighting tends to be basically surrounding and revolving around this center cluster of structures. So, I mean, again, it can draw towards here, it can draw towards here, but generally it tends to happen around here. A bit more round here, and again, it's due to the more wide open spaces. This one sort of, it tends to be small, sort of swifter, quick engagements, just hit a quick blow here, quick blow there, but nothing sort of, you know, prolonged. And again, that's due to the geography. It doesn't really suit itself well for it. So, I mean, it tends to happen a lot more over here and here. Harassment, though, is sort of more for this spot. Some players might try to set up something there, but generally it tends to happen less that way. So, I mean, overall, you sort of understand how to sort of use this area to your advantage, depending on style. I mean, you can generally sort of do a lot to dominate this map as well, since it's also basically a spot where the roads cross through, and you can easily sort of then move towards here or here, wherever, depending on it. So again, I mean, it's not going to win you the game necessarily, but it's going to make things a lot bloody easier if you sort of set up a good control around this square. I mean, that's pretty simply put. So I think that sort of largely covers it with La Gleize. I mean, a lot of the buildings are surprisingly good for infantry. There are a few that are sort of rubbish, though they're a bunch actually small sort of ships. But again, they're then pretty good for infiltrators like Partisans, Fallschirmjägers, Jägers, Stormtroopers, and the likes. Otherwise, I mean, as always, you know, keep in mind, Rome's a good spot for mining, though, of course, the one sort of more like this, for example, a good spot for. I mean, again, there's a car here, so I mean, that tends to sort of funnel things is around here is actually a good spot for mining. Here, mining, or demo charges. I mean, again, demo charges can also sort of do well, although generally wants to be a bit more clever with them, sort of slightly hiding them. So, I mean, there's still sort of a chance they don't necessarily see it right away, even if there's a minesweeper around or something, but, you know, at the same time, you know, you can also sort of do something nasty. That's something to keep in mind there as well, for those curious. But I think that largely covers the map here. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode of the Propaganda Fields. Hopefully you've now got a slightly stronger idea of La Gleize Breakout, how it works, and how to turn it to your advantage. This is Imperial Dane signing out and saying thank you all for watching. Cheers.